Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. I'm doing okay here in California. Beautiful day out. It's 65 degrees, pretty nice for California. And I'm going to talk about some Venezuela stuff today. And I've had a couple people cancel my Substack, johnseiler.substack.com. That's okay if I'm not outraging some people. That's good. So if you don't like it, unsubscribe. But if you do like it on this video, like and subscribe, pass it along, and go to my Substack too, because I have a lot of stuff there. So let's talk about it. One of the things is all these people say they know what's going on, but nobody knows what's going on. And right now, apparently, according to one story, we don't even have any troops there anymore. They all were there for like 2 hours or less, and they all left. So how can we control the government there? I checked, and remembering when we invaded Iraq in 2003, it took 20 days, and they captured the capital of Iraq. Baghdad. 20 days, our troops went up from Kuwait. You remember that? And but we're not doing anything at all like that, and they're just assuming that it works. Uh, the um, the Trump and Rubio are saying that the government there is going to turn over all this oil and money to us, but they're saying Venezuela state-owned company disputes deal with the U.S. So we don't know what's going on. They call it the fog of war, but is what kind of war is this? It's the Venezuela war, but it's it's so far it's nothing, but it could be something. If they don't do what Trump wants, he's going to grab the acting president, the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez. I checked up on her, and her father was killed by the United States government somehow, and he was a big into Chavismo, and so is she. Hugo Chavez was the guy who took over. He was elected in 1999. They had a recession, bad depression actually, and he took over and then nationalized. Actually, the oil was already nationalized, but he imposed socialism. It was nationalized in the 70s, so we can't say it was his fault. Uh, the oil was, and Trump is saying now it belongs to the United States, even though that's not the case. Uh, but this woman appears she's a total loyalist to Maduro, the guy that was arrested. And another thing about him, they dropped the drug charges because it came out that the group they were referring to doesn't exist anymore, but it's the one the CIA set up back in the 70s and 80s to deal drugs, to deal cocaine. There's a CBS special on it with Mike Wallace from 1993 describing how the CIA set this drug cartel up and sent cocaine into the United States. That's where it came from. Amazing. And another thing is on Pete Hegseth is saying, "Oh, we shut down the Russian air defenses. They were no good." Yeah, true, they did shut it down or it was shut off or something, but this was a short war, 2 hours. What about in a long war? If there's a bunch of those air defense there, like apparently there is in Iraq, and of course there is in Russia itself, they're always shooting down the Ukrainian drones, which are quite good, and Ukrainian missiles because they're made in America or in Germany or somewhere. So if this really was an effective air defense, not just some slapped together thing, all our troops would have been killed in the air before they got down. So this was just one like that, and uh, and also Russian intelligence and Chinese intelligence. They're very good. They're not as good as our intelligence at the NSA and the CIA in finding out what's going on, but they're very good. And they can find out who the traitors were that apparently betrayed Maduro and let our troops come in there and kill the Cuban guards, something like 80 of them. So that's a couple of things right there. And we have some other things going on here. Oh, I had this. Let's go to, uh, before we go to this, let's look at this is Behind the News with John Seiler. Check out my Substack, johnseiler.substack.com. And this one, Financial Times today. Venezuela's oil output faces, quote, collapse, unquote, as U.S. naval blockade chokes exports. So what happens if the people in Venezuela starts starving to death in mass, and it's all going to be broadcast on iPhone pictures. It'll be sent everywhere, especially in the Hispanic world, and we have about I think it's like 50 million Hispanics in America now. Many of them speak Spanish, or their mom does, or their grandpa, and they all know a little bit of Spanish. And many people learn Spanish. I learned it in school a long time ago, not well, but it was the Michigan public schools, somewhat mediocre. This was a long time ago, but so what happens? What happens with that? And another question here is, uh, when you have a revolution and you get rid of the government, the first thing you do is you take over the communications. You take over the TV stations, the radio stations, the newspapers, the magazines. You take over that and start producing your propaganda. But they didn't do that here. The TV stations and stuff are all controlled by Delcy Rodriguez and her government, Maduro's government, and they're broadcasting their version of whatever is going on. And even if America bombed those places, bombed the newspapers, bombed the radio stations and stuff, uh, the internet is still up. It's almost impossible to get rid of the internet. And it's kind of funny because you could shut off the power, which they did. Trump brags about that. Well, it sounds like California. About every week, the power shuts down out here. We're so badly managed by everybody. Uh, but anyway, the power's back on. Can't keep the power off forever, or everybody will starve to death. So let's go to we have another thing here for Glenn Beck. Let me turn this on for you. Okay. This is where's Glenn? Okay.
Changing the global regime. Who runs the global regime? There's two things. One, China. China, Russia, Iran, they're running what I would call the Axis powers. Okay. You have to start thinking, as I told you last year, we're in World War III. You just don't know it yet. We're in a Cold War. Hope to God it never.
The Axis powers in World War II were Japan and Germany, mainly, in Italy, and a couple others. And they attacked the Soviet Union, Russia, and killed 27 million people. And Japan also attacked China starting in 1931 and killed, some say, even more than that, 30 million, 40 million. So it's such an insult to call them the Axis powers. Because last year, 2025, they had an anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe. The Russians had a big parade, and then China had one when Japan ended. And of course, they take credit just like the Russians did. They give up us some credit, and we had a lot more credit. After all, we were the ones that nuked Japan and invaded it. But anyway, that's how they look on it. That this was this great abomination, and they invited Trump, but he didn't come to those celebrations. Too bad. It would have been a chance to make peace, but it's just an insult to call them the Axis powers. You can call them something else. About the communist powers, they used to be communist, and they still have the Communist Party of China. And Putin used to be in the Communist Party. He was a KGB agent. How about that? They're both as capitalist as we are now. It's historically ignorant. Okay.
He's not changing a regime. He's changing the global regime. Who runs the global regime? There's two things. One, China. China, Russia, Iran, they're running what I would call the Axis powers. Okay. You have to start thinking, as I told you last year, we're in World War III. You just don't know it yet. We're in a Cold War. Hope to God it never becomes a hot war. But what Donald Trump is building is this arsenal so it doesn't go into a hot war. FDR waited too long. At the pace that Donald Trump is running, it may not be too late. But what is the regime? One, China. There are only three choices of where this all ends.
He's talking there about the build-up to World War II in the United States, and in the print for this, he mentions that FDR did build it up, but this is just historically illiterate too. Here I have the numbers here for how much defense spending in the United States before and during World War II. 1935, 1%, 36 and 37, 1%, went up to 1.2%, 1938, 1939, 1.5%. That's when the war started in Europe in September, when Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union attacked Poland. And then the UK and France responded, declared war on Germany, but not in the Soviet Union. uh, and then, of course, in 1941, it went up to 5%. That was Pearl Harbor. And FDR was gearing us up for war anyway. My father was drafted in March 1941 and spent 5 years in the Army, became a captain. And then in 1942, it went up to 20%, then 40% for the next 3 years, basically, at least 40% toward the end of the war. Incredible amount, the arsenal of democracy. But see, he's wrong that we should have built up earlier because that would have retarded the development of the industries. These industries in this country, and my father was part of that too. He was a tool and die maker before the war, and in the war, he was in ordnance, fixing tanks and guns and all that stuff. And the UK did the same. They didn't build up as much right away. But what that allowed us and them to do was to develop our technologies in the civilian sector, especially long range aviation. And what does long range aviation do if you develop it? Bombers, long range bombers. The B 57 bomber for us, and then other bombers. And also, the Brits had the Avro Lancaster and another one. I can't remember the name right now. Uh, anyway, the main one was the Avro Lancaster, long-range bombers. Those are the ones that smashed the German cities and industries. And if we had been building other stuff, we would have built the wrong stuff because the technology was not ready. We would have wasted it. It was better to wait, and then when the war starts, then you gear up the industries. That's why this is just foolish. So we're supposed to do that now on what? And at that time there was almost no deficit in the country. So that way, consider this too. In World War II, despite the Great Depression, our national debt was pretty small. So they could issue 2% gold-backed bonds for the war, and they had we still were on the gold standard then. We were on the gold standards, and we actually paid off those bonds within 20 years. They were a really good investment, and it was just a sound investment in America and in the war and in the future. What about now? We don't have gold-backed dollar. It's lost about half its value since Trump came there, according to gold. And would anybody buy American bonds now at 2%? That would be absurd. We are fine, and we have $40 trillion in debt now, 40 trillion in debt. It's just silly. This guy doesn't know what he's talking. Doesn't know history, doesn't know economics. All to face China. And what's China doing? As I mentioned yesterday, they're just plodding along, making more money. They already have a much bigger economy than we do, 1/3 bigger, because they didn't waste 8 trillion on the Iraq and the Afghanistan wars. And I have a good quote here from President Xi. I've shown this book before. I'll put a link to it. This is his collection of his speeches. Came out last year. I've been reading this. You should get it. It's really good. They're boring speeches from Communist Party boss, but they're still interesting. And this one right here. Okay, let me find it. Okay, this is President Xi. Report to the 20th Communist Party of China National Congress. We will promote clean, low-carbon, and high-efficiency energy use and push forward the clean and low-carbon transition in industry, construction, transportation, and other sectors. We will thoroughly advance the energy revolution. That's not all. Coal will be used in a cleaner and more efficient way, and greater efforts will be made to explore and develop petroleum and natural gas, discover more untapped reserves, and increase production. And if you saw my video yesterday, I pointed out that when Beck is saying they're going to be starved of oil if we take over Venezuela and then Iran. But I pointed out of total energy used by China, only 2.5% comes from Iran plus Venezuela. So he doesn't know what he's talking about. And President Xi and these guys, they've been preparing for 40 years for this. 40 years. And they're coming up with their next 5 year plan in a couple months. It's not like the old Soviet 5 year plans where they starved to death people to do it. It's they plan the economy so that there's a great deal of capitalism in it, and they just prepare they get the high speed rail going, and they have the energy thing here. So let me continue. We will speed up the planning and development um, of a system for new energy sources, properly balance hydropower development and ecological conservation, and develop nuclear power in active, safe, and orderly manner. And remember, if you saw me what I wrote or I broadcast yesterday, they're building 30 new nuclear power plants. We're building two at most. They're building 100 new coal plants. 100 coal plants. We're building zero. So where does that go? I think we've had enough of Glenn for today. And I have another one here on, they're talking about what they're going to do in Venezuela. How Trump has a plan, and he's putting Steve Miller in charge. He's the guy who's in charge of the immigration policy. He's an advisor. He's not even an official who's approved by Congress, by the Senate rather. Uh, but here he is explaining how.
What we've learned from history, Sean, is that the priority in the aftermath of any kind of change in government in a country, particularly one with a challenging recent past, is stability. So the president is very wise in his understanding, and he spoke very eloquently and movingly at the recent press conference at Mar-a-Lago about the bright future awaiting the Venezuelan people. And so his priority right now is on security, prosperity, stability. So he is working round the clock to get Venezuela's oil industry up and running to where it needs to be in a way that only America, and this is very important, only the United States, with our technology, our platforms, our resources can provide. That will bring security to our hemisphere, security to America. It will lower the price of gas, it will lower the price of oil, but it will bring an incredibly bright, predictable, stable future to the people of Venezuela. And so I think it's really exciting when you think about the fact that if we can just deliver this interim period of security and stability, the citizens of Venezuela are looking at a future that a short time ago they could scarcely imagine, Sean. A lot of people don't know that it was American companies that built out.
You'll notice he didn't provide any details except one. They're going to lower oil prices for us, mainly in America, but throughout the world. But there's a problem. Venezuela has really thick crude oil. It takes more money to develop it, and that means you need higher prices to invest in it. The oil companies are already saying, "Hey, we don't know what's going on here. What's go what's going on here? If the price is too low, then it doesn't make sense to invest in there. It's only when the price goes up, which probably will someday, then it'll do it." So I don't know what this. I mean, this is a smart guy. They're just winging it basically. They don't know what's going to happen. They have no idea. They took the president Maduro, and he's on trial in New York. And go to the Gray Zone with Max Blumenthal. I'll provide a link. But he has an article just totally eviscerating all the charges against Maduro. Like one of them is he was violating the 1934 U.S. Gun control bill, but Maduro was not in the United States. And another problem is there's this thing called the Vienna Convention, where you can't just grab a foreign head of state. It's banned. But Trump doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about anything anymore. And we're just at the start of this. 4 days in, just where it's going to go, I don't know. I don't know. So that's what I have for you today, and we'll just keep watching this. One more thing I have here, and then I'll bring Ali out. Uh, this is the New York Times today. Trump gives U.S. foes an opening to pounce, a basis for brute force in their spheres. That's naive. The China and Russia are going to be reacting to this, but in a smarter way, economics or something else. Certainly, it gives Russia no reason to make any deal on Ukraine. That's going to be it. Nothing. They're just going to do it We're going to take over the whole country one way or another, probably. At least the eastern part of the country up to the Dnieper River. They're going to take Odessa, undoubtedly. That's the last remaining area on the Black Sea. So that Ukraine, even if it still exists, will not have a port. It'll be starved of that. And then the rest will just be stuck to Europe or something, maybe 10 million people. So that's Russia and China are not stupid. They're not going to, like our people, our whole government is stupid. And Trump is not stupid, but uh, he's become way too egotistical. I mean, all these presidents, of course, have an ego. You wouldn't run for that job without an ego. But he's just gone too far. Something wrong, unfortunately, because I supported the guy precisely so he would not do this. So he would not have a regime change all over all these countries. How many is he going to do now? Now, anyway, okay. One more thing. We'll get Ollie out here. Ollie, come here. Come here. There's Ollie. He's been barking too much lately, so I kept him inside. But he wants to come out at the end. And we have our Ollie treats that he loves. One right here for Ollie. There we go, Ollie. Okay, so you're gonna be a good boy next time. Maybe we'll keep you at the beginning. That's it for now, everybody. Let's pray that this war is over quickly and Trump just declares victory, and that's the end of it. Make some deals on the oil, get the oil flowing, help the people there, and not get any of our troops killed. Bye.